I feel so fall today with my sweater. I got comfy socks on. I have my dachshund mug and some tea, and we're gonna talk about some books. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Haley and I am here to give you my November TBR. So the first thing I want to say before I get started is just from the bottom of my heart, a huge thank you to anyone who has given my channel a chance. At this point, I just feel like I have more people and a better way to talk about books. I am so grateful for that, and I am grateful to anyone who's chosen to watch a video or to subscribe, including this one. So I'm so happy to be along for this journey, and I thank you all who are here with me. It means the absolute world. So as I said, and as you can probably tell, this is a November TBR. Now, if you watched my video that was the 10 books I want to read before the end of the year, you know that I don't like to put too much pressure on my reading. So, of course, I decided to take part in a readathon that requires me to have a TBR of over 20 books, because that's no pressure at all. Getting to over 20 is very unlikely, but I wanted to support this readathon. I thought it looked really cool, and it takes place during the entire month of November. So I am participating in mythothon, and it centers around the Greek gods, goddesses, heroes, monsters, just all of the stories that are classic to the Iliad, the Odyssey, and all the other Greek myths that many of us have come to know and be familiar with. And of course, I absolutely love Greek mythology, so taking place in this readathon was really and truly a no-brainer. So if you want to hear what I'm going to be reading in the month of November, please just keep on watching. So the first challenge we have is for the god Zeus, and it is to read a book that is longer than 400 pages. I have chosen the book American Gods by Neil Gaiman. It sits at about 460 pages, so it definitely completes the challenge. I am going to be trying to read this on audiobook because I am currently waitlisted for it from my library, and I should be getting it soon. So I think completing this via audiobook will be so much better for me than trying to read this physically and getting done 24 other books. The second challenge is for the goddess Hera, and it is to read a book about royalty. The book I have chosen for this challenge is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. I have not read this. I am so behind on this series, and I am sure you've heard about this book. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I am hoping to read this month. The third challenge is to read a book for the goddess Hebe, and it is to read a middle grade or a young adult novel. I am going to be reading Arusha and the End of Time by Roshani Chakshi. The fourth challenge is for Poseidon, the god of the sea, Percy Jackson's father, and it is to read a book that features the sea, such as with mermaids, pirates. I am going to be reading Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman. It is a National Book Award winner, so I'm sure it will be good. The next book is for Hermes, which of course is the god of travel, the one with those little sandals with the wings on it. And the challenge is to read a book that takes place in a country that is not your own. I chose Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I have been rereading the Harry Potter series for the past couple of months, and it's interesting because I have read the first 5 books probably multiple times, but surprisingly, I think I've only read the 6th and 7th book once each. So the next goddess is Aphrodite. Of course, the goddess of beauty needs to have a book that has a beautiful cover, and there's really no other book on my shelf that fits this except for Circe by Madeline Miller, which is extra appropriate because it does surround a Greek mythology figure. And the next is for the Hydra, which of course has multiple heads. So the book that we are supposed to read for this challenge is one that takes place with multiple perspectives. And I have chosen The Diviners by Libba Bray because I believe this has a pretty big cast of characters and they all have points of views that take place during this novel. I'm really excited for this. I think this will give me great fall ambiance, and I'm just feeling so in the autumnal spirit right now that I just think that this will be such a good time to read this book. The next challenge is for the goddess Iris, which is the goddess of the rainbow. And the prompt is to read a book that has either our favorite color in the title or on the cover. So, fun fact about me, my favorite color is green, so I will be reading Thunderhead, again by Neil Shusterman. Of course, this is the second book in the Scythe series, so the next challenge is for ancient Greece, and it is to read a book that is set in the past. Now, I haven't exactly picked the book that I'm going to be reading for this particular challenge, because it does not depend on me, it actually depends on somebody else. I am going to be reading a book with someone during the month of November, and I really want her to be able to pick what she wants, but the choices that I have laid out would all complete this challenge. The next challenge is to read a book that is the first in the series for the goddess Hestia. So if you watched my video about the 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year, it should come as no surprise that I want to read a darker shade of magic for this. Next is Dionysus, the god of wine. The challenge for him is to read a book that came out in 2018. If you watched my last video, it will not come as a surprise to you that I am going to be trying to read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. The next challenge is for Achilles and Patroclus, and the challenge is to read a book with an LGBTQIAP+ protagonist. So I will be reading More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera, and it is actually my first Adam Silvera book, and I will be reading it on ebook. The next book is a free choice, and I'm not gonna pick something for this. It's gonna be kind of a mood. We're gonna see if I even get to the free choice challenge, so I'm just gonna leave this one open for right now. So the next challenge is for Homer, and it is to read a retelling, whether it be a myth, a classical story, anything like that. I decided to choose The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I got this from Book of the Month, and I believe it has to do with basically the Trojan War from the women's perspective, which I think is so interesting. I love reading about this kind of thing. It's fairly short, which I certainly need. The next challenge is for the god Hephaestus, who was thrown off Mount Olympus, so the challenge is to read a book with a disabled character. For this, I will be reading another ebook called El Defo by C.C. Bell. The next challenge is to read a book with a compelling antagonist or written from the villain's point of view. This, of course, is for the god Ares. I'm kind of stretching on this challenge, but let me just tell you what I'm gonna read. So to finish my reread, I am planning on reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So I feel like Voldemort, first of all, is a very compelling antagonist. It's of course not written from his point of view, but this is the penultimate battle between good and evil, so I feel like I'm not stretching too far, but regardless, I do want to read this month, so. The next challenge is for Echidna, the mother of monsters, and is to read about monsters, whether it be dragons, zombies, you name it. I, of course, decided to pick a nonfiction book, actually, and it is The Psychopath Test by John Ronson. Now, I feel like this counts because I feel like psychopaths are monsters, modern day monsters, so. The next book is for none other than Heracles, and it is to read a popular book. Now, of course, popular book is kind of open to interpretation, but I feel like this one really fits the bill. So I am going to be reading Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I feel like this is very popular, especially with the recent release of Muse of Nightmares, and I just want to read it before the end of the year, so this is kind of the perfect time to do it. The next book is for the challenge of Mother Gaia, who of course is Mother Earth. So the challenge is to read a book that was published more than 5 years ago. So I am picking Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, and I believe this was published in the late 80s. The next book is for Artemis, Goddess of the Hunt. So the challenge is to read a book with an animal in the title or on the cover. I will be reading Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, and I don't know if you can tell, but there is a bird, maybe a raven. Ooh! Oh, my books just fail. none were harmed. All right, the next book is for Athena, my favorite. She is the goddess of wisdom, and her challenge is to read a book that is not the first in the series. For this challenge, I will be reading Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. I have talked about this before. I read the first 2 books earlier this year, so I really just want to finish up the trilogy. The next book is for Persephone, and it is to read a book that is less than 200 pages, which really fits nicely with having so many big books here. I really like this challenge. I will be reading Night by Elie Wiesel. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, so I am so sorry if I am butchering this, but I know this is a really hard-hitting book. I know it's going to be difficult to read, but I think it will be very impactful, and I am very excited to get to it. The next book I will be reading will be for the challenge of Apollo, which is to read a collection of poetry or short stories. So I will be reading Difficult Women, and this will also be via ebook. The next challenge for Hades is to read a book you got for free, whether it be borrowed from a friend or from the library, or an audiobook or something like that. So I will actually not be picking a book for this right now, just because I'm gonna kind of see what becomes available to me, or if I can maybe borrow a book from a friend or from my parents. But I don't want to set a for sure book for this category, just because I really don't know what's going to become available. I'm very much a mood reader, so I want to have that open to me to be able to read something that really sparks my interest when the time comes. And finally, the challenge for Demeter is to read a book with a nature word in the title. I will be reading Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I believe this is a poetry book or something like that. I picked this up from a used bookstore because I saw Walt Whitman. I know this is very well known and I want to read it. So I think this is the perfect time to do that. So that is all of the books that I am hoping to read this month. Again, there are a ton, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to get to all of them, but I guess you will see at the end of November when I do a wrap-up. It's a lot of books, but I like how diverse all of the genres are and age ranges. I feel like that will make this a very interesting reading month, and I think that there's something that really fits every mood. Since I am such a mood reader, I think that will be really helpful for me and kind of help me avoid getting in a reading slump. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you care to do so, please subscribe and leave a comment with any books you are planning on reading in the month of November, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!